Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our last event from this year, just for 2020. And thank you, each one of you, for coming and being with us. I don't know how is it the weather where you are, but here we have a wonderful sunny Saturday. So we hope all of us, and I'm sure we are going to have a wonderful morning with Professor Samira Dallagnol, Professor Roberta, and Jennifer Euler. Okay? I'm going to introduce you a little bit, Professor Samira. And if you have any problem from internet or connection or whatever, please talk to us by the chat that Professor Marcia Farias is going to help you there, okay? So Professor Samira Dallagnol has a PhD in modern languages. She's studying, almost finishing, and culture post-grad programs at the University of Caxias do Sul. She's a professor at the University of Caxias do Sul. He's an English teacher and owner and director of Futura Idiomas. It's an autonomous language school established in 2008 in Nova Bassano, and her areas of interest are sociology of reading, reading profiling English teachers, teacher training, and language teaching. So as you can see, she's going to talk a little bit about reading to us, and I'm sure we are going to learn a lot with her, okay? So welcome, Professor Samira Dallagnol.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everyone. So it's a great pleasure being here with all of you. And I really wanted to thank especially Professor Maria Valese for this invitation, but also all the girls here from the board, because they are giving us all the support to be here into this event. So thank you, Katia. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Camila, for being here with us into this great moment. So today I thought it could be very interesting sharing with you some of these first or preliminary ideas regarding my studies into these reading and reading practices areas. I know that this kind of topic is not that much discussed while from this English teaching perspective. And that's why I think this kind of a topic can add some new point of view to our discussions. I believe all of you can hear me kind of well. So perhaps if you have any kind of problem, you can contact us, okay? So perhaps you can see somebody here. This is Oliver Twist. He's going to participate into this live today. So people, I'm gonna start sharing with you my screen and try to organize this in a way you can also have some more information in your screen.
Okay, let me just interrupt you for a moment, Samira, just to give all attendees a tip. If they are not familiar with Zoom, you can click on speaker view at this time, so you will have a better view of whatever Samira is presenting, both her talk and her presentation. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, please go to the top right part of your screen. You will see a button called speaker view. If you click on speaker view, you have a better view of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start. So as I was trying to tell you people, I'm going to talk about this idea of, are English teachers literature readers? Pondering on experiences. So my intention here would be like trying to give you just an introductory idea of these theories, but I don't want to be so exhaustive about that, I promise. Also, I try to organize some numbers, so I'm going to present some graphs regarding the first results I found into this research. And then I'm going to share with you a very fine project, a reading project we are organizing and we are attending. All right. So this first part, people, I wanted to present to you some of the reasons I try to list to motivate me to search about us. And then when I say us, I mean us English teachers. And then my first question, and I think this was something that really motivated me and intrigued me somehow, is, are we readers or non-readers? Perhaps you have already talked with some colleagues at schools, at language schools, at university, and probably you have already heard some English teachers saying, oh, I don't like literature. This is not my cup of tea. This is something that I don't have some familiarity with, and I don't care much about that. I believe at least once in your life you heard this kind of conversation. And then this started to ring a bell for me, and then I thought, is it possible a language teacher do not appreciate literature, do not like reading? So let's move on, let's try to search about. And then other questions came up, such as, when we English teachers say we don't read, or when we say that we don't read much, we don't read enough, or we don't read at all, and how much we read, what would we be expecting to read? Perhaps we have a kind of pattern to follow. Perhaps we have some standard to reach. I see there is a kind of understanding. Sometimes it's not so explicit, but perhaps we are trying to search, to look for a kind of pattern. Oh, perhaps I have to read all the classics. Well, I must be very updated about reading and read all the things that are being launched and all the things that are like blockbusters or going like bestsellers. But what is that? What kind of pattern I'm following? And then, as I told you, other questions came up. Are our reading practices being done in English? Or do you read only in Portuguese, or only in English, or perhaps in any other language you know, because you feel that reading in English is kind of tiring, you deal with English every day, and then you want to switch to another thing and try to appreciate literature, for example, in Spanish or Italian or German. I don't know which languages do you know. Or are there relations between what we read and what we teach? Do you think we try to illustrate our lessons with literature? Do you think literature can guide somehow our practices? Do you think this kind of reading, a more profound or more complex reading, could help us as English teachers? And then, why do we read what we read? So with this question, I'm trying to talk about the kind of choices we make when we are reading or when we choose the things to read. Then what do we do to what we read? And then I aim the kind of practices we have with reading. Do we share things? Do we publish it into our social media? Do we comment it with our students? What do we do with that? I'm checking here, there is something, I don't know, any problem? No? So far so good? Okay. The last question is about what do literary texts do to readers? And this is a kind of philosophical question, yes, because it's kind of hard to say how a text can transform the reader. And this is very individual. my research tries to goes after this kind of questions. That's why I search reading in this field of sociological, field and anthropological field somehow. Then, people, another other aspects I wanted to raise here is this relation between the teacher and the reader. So every time I think a teacher is a good reader, I think this teacher as an inventive and instigating and a curious professional. I believe most of you are going to agree with me. People who read, they have more facility to create other things, to relate things that sometimes they seem not to have a connection. And I believe literary reading could raise our creativity. And also it is a source of information, a source of knowledge, a cultural source of knowledge for sure. And of course, we can relate reading with the students and also with the teachers. With the students, we can think reading as a way to not only boost reading practices, but also to develop this ability of reading. But I believe you are noticing I'm going beyond the idea of developing the ability of reading. This is not only one first step, but this is like the basic step. After that, where do we go with the reading? And this is important to think about. And then another and perhaps the most interesting reason that motivated me to search about this is this relation between the teacher and the reading and the lack of knowledge regarding this issue. There are many researchers, many theses talking about this relation, but I couldn't find here in Brazil something talking about the profile of the English teacher as a reader. And that's why I wanna discuss, I wanna bring this topic up. Okay, people. Then I can tell you that we as reader, teachers and mediators of reading, we have a primary commitment, and our continuing education, as we are doing today, this morning, this is going through our own reading path in a foreign language. So our progress, our step-by-step in reading will allow us to reflect on the various aspects surrounding the task of training readers, in addition to knowing different theoretical perspectives, in order to compose a general picture of reading process, its consequences, and the strength of its practice in social terms. Sometimes, once we are focused into this linguistic aspect, sometimes we let it aside in a way that, oh, reading is just developing the ability of reading, being able to comprehend a text, understand the ideas set there. But there are many other things beyond. And that's why it is really motivating me to go into this direction. Okay, I'm going to bring you some different studies in a very superficial perspective, I would say, because they are going to go very, very deep in this topic. But just for you to have an idea, into this research project that is leading by Kremen, teachers were encouraged to develop and share individual preferences and achievements, recognizing family, community, and cultural influences in reading, in addition to seeking in this practice a pleasant form of entertainment. So you see, reading here is not something that is taken as a task, but as leisure time. Something that could help teachers to develop not only as a professional teacher, but also a human being. So for some teachers, personal engagement and reflective involvement as adult readers helped them to reconsider the nature of reading and the experience of being a reader when in contact with their students. And this is really beautiful, people, because everybody knows here that if a teacher is telling you, oh, please read this book is amazing. Oh, please take a look into this. We can notice the passion behind this recommendation, if this is true or if this is fake. Once this teacher doesn't have this path or this relation with all these titles, all these works or books, it is very easy for the students to don't give credit, don't believe in the teacher, right? So this is really important, the teacher being a reader. Moving on, people, it is evident that teachers need considerably support to find time and space to expand their reading repertoire and develop an appropriate personalized reading curriculum that is responsive and inclusive. We can say here that this is a kind of disclaimer or something that we are trying to look for or reach, because everybody knows we need time and usually we don't have it. We work kind of a lot and sometimes reading is like our last option of distraction. I totally understand all of you if you are thinking in this direction, but then I believe there are many different ways I will show you during this conversation here to understand yourself, accept this kind of reality you are in, and even though, look for the proper book to read. So, in addition, there is still a lot of work to be done to develop the concept of a teacher reader at the elementary and middle levels, and to build professional relationships based on new concepts of reading in contemporary times. And here, this is about the criminal research, and they are focusing into these two levels, elementary and middle levels in England, okay? This is not a Brazilian study. Well, reading occupies a place of evidence in the constitution of us, while active subjects, aware of our attitudes, capable of perceiving ourselves as social agents, excelling for the leading role in our lives. Having one of the differentials of our career, the fact of being reading references for our students, we, teachers, readers, are encouraged to interact with the environment in which we are inserted with different people and situations in order to play this guiding role among the students. Who said that was Isabel Soler, and she is a Brazilian researcher. She studies the reading practices for a long time already, and I can see here from this excerpt a very interesting relation between the role of the English teacher nowadays, thinking of English as an international language, thinking of these intercultural practices we are trying to insert in our classes. And then I see again reading as a very valuable source of information, of references for not only for us, but also for our students. Let's go on, people. Soler also highlights our English language teacher role and visualizing us in the current context of globalization of ideas, territories, and languages. It is completely pertinent that we perceive ourselves as part of this scenario, benefiting from the information, knowledge, and relationships in order to be aware of our actions and be a mediator of reading texts, as well as a questioner of the context. Of course, people, we can start from very small texts, we can start from textbooks, we can start from short stories, but we cannot stop there. And this is something that I try to pursue in my classes and also stimulate my own students to do that. So to us, English teachers define it as readers and seeking to build our own reading path. And this is important, people. This is not like the specific repertoire for all this category of English teachers. No, this is not possible. And this is beautiful, people. Every time we think about the things I'm reading, the things you as a person is reading, this big variety is the most beautiful part of it. Of course, we can have some common reading, for example, sharing some classics or sharing some contemporary titles, but every and each of us is going to have the particular or the individual repertoire of reading. And this is very nice. And it is worth questioning how reading practices should be presented and discussed in a socio-cultural view. It is of less importance that the teachers know the titles of the authors of the great classics of English language literature. This is not the point, in fact. If we do not allow ourselves to undergo the reading experience, that is, exactly reading at least some of these works, getting to know the names, getting to know the authors doesn't really matter, okay? And then I bring you some quote from Bombini. There is another professor who is working on these reading practices here in Brazil. More than a list of beautiful texts, reading allows ideas, reflections, and experiences to be shared at different levels. It is essential that we readers find ourselves in that text, either by identification with the character or by questioning the narrator's posture or by the textual genre or by another aspect. And this identification is justified when reading is understood as a collaborative experience, but also as something that is experienced by each reader in a unique way. So perhaps you have this understanding too, that maybe in the past you read a book and you understood some things, you got some ideas from that book. And then perhaps last year you grabbed the book again and read it again. And then it seems to be a total different, a new book for you. And this is very nice, very interesting. It's awesome, in fact. And then we can see the power of reading, but not because of these texts, how brilliant the text is. It is much more because of this relation we create. Because as readers, we change throughout the time. And then having contact with the same text will allow us to understand different things. And this is also something fantastic to show to our students the power of reading. Moving on, people, understanding what reading practices are performed by English teachers allows us to analyze how much we share ideas in a diachronic way, searching in literary reading from different authors and periods, elements to understand and analyze the synchronic ideas and experiences, lived not only as readers, but as protagonists of the contemporary historical and socio-cultural moment. And here we can see the reader as a historical subject, a person, an individual, somebody who has the power of changing some things in his or her life, in his or her community, in his or her society. Then, people, I wanted to explain to you this gang of numbers I tried to organize, and how did I reach these numbers? You can find here some explanation in this slide. As I told you, I'm studying this reading, English literature reading experiences in my PhD process. And then I collected this data from an online questionnaire. So at around 55 teachers answered that, but I reached 80, at least 80 teachers, English teachers from Caxias and all this region, with the help from Quarta CRE and also from Braztesol. And I'm going to present here just a few questions. Of course, we don't have time for all of them. If you imagine, if you have the idea of this questionnaire, it's not that big, but it is around 20, 22 questions. So I'm just showing here or there some of them. Don't worry that much, okay? It won't take long, but I believe you're gonna get really surprised and interested about that. Okay, one of the most important questions, I asked the teachers if they consider themselves readers. And then we have these kind of answers. 15% of the teachers, they said, no, I don't consider myself as a reader. And I didn't ask about the language, okay? By the way, the questionnaire was in Portuguese. And 34% said, yes, I am a reader, and I read up to 5 books per year. And a big amount of teachers said, yes, I'm a reader. I read around 10 books per year. 30% of the teachers said that. And a minor group of teachers said, yes, I read up to 15 books per year. 6% of the teachers said that. And other 15% said, yes, I read more than 15 books per year. So we see, when people say teachers don't read, teachers don't have time, I don't know exactly if these teachers are very special, if they are lying, or if, in fact, this kind of common sense is not totally true. Sometimes common sense is based on some patterns we have, and then we say, I don't read because, in my mind, I think, I don't read the classics, because I don't read in English, or because I am not reading the same things that my colleagues are reading. So you see, we have a lot of preconcepts or some beliefs behind any kind of possible answer. Moving on, people. Another interesting question was about the reading, the registering, and the sharing. How these teachers deal with the kind of reading they are doing or they did. So a very small number of teachers, 4%, they said they don't like sharing. They prefer keeping the reading with themselves and not sharing with other people. But a vast majority, like 42%, said I comment in person with friends, co-workers, and acquaintances. And then another big percentage is like 25%. They say I share in person with someone from my family. And I believe these two categories could show us people really appreciate sharing their practices with other familiar people in terms of being connected to that person, getting to know their tastes of reading, understanding their choices of reading. That's why they prefer sharing with closer people. And then also there is a very interesting number, 17% of these teachers, they said they like sharing their reading practices, their reading choices in their social medias. And this is true. We can follow our colleagues and see how many of them, once in a blue moon, they post something on Instagram or on Facebook, on Twitter, any other social media. Sometimes they have some YouTube channel to share reviews or share their reading choices. So there is this movement. Reading happens. And this is something I wanted to highlight in this conversation. Well, another question here. How people deal with their literature readings or literature choices in their English classes. So a reader to be or a teacher to be, trying to make a parallel with our loved or beloved Shakespeare. As you can see here, people, the vast majority of these teachers, they said, my literary readings are chosen besides my profession. 65% of the teachers said that. They don't choose reading things straightforward, connected to their subject or the topics he or she is teaching at the moment. And this is quite interesting, right? Because sometimes we are reading something and there is also a way to make a connection with the things that we are teaching and the things we are reading. Sometimes we are not, this is not so clear for us, but it is always possible to do that. And this is a very intriguing answer that I want to research a bit more about. Okay, then coming back to this sharing idea. So what kind of movements these teachers do when they share their reading practices? Again, at around 17% don't really share their readings with their co-workers, but 16% said, I lend the book when I read it. I comment about the book I read. So a big number of teachers, like 63%. And a very small percentage, I invite my co-work to talk about the book I read. Something very, very direct. So this is not so common. What is really common is commenting in a generical way with the colleagues. Then a question about which would be the language teachers would rather read, Portuguese or English. So they said they would read in English if the text doesn't offer much difficulty. Like 22% said that. They would read in Portuguese if the text offers too much difficulty. So at around 9% said that. And then it depends on the original language of the text, being this my one criteria. So at around 22% of the teachers said that. And finally, it depends on the access I have on the text, not mattering the language. And almost 50% the teachers said that. Doesn't matter the language, but the access. So if I can reach the book in Portuguese, I would read in Portuguese. Or if I have the access to this text in English, I would go for the English language. And this is interesting, people, because I didn't put here, but one of my questions were about the level these teachers consider themselves to be in terms of English language. And I don't remember exactly the numbers, but I believe almost 40% of them said they would reach C1 or C2 in the Common European Framework reference about these levels of English. So what I mean, getting to know the language is not really a difficulty of this group of teachers, you see. And this is a very interesting question, people. I asked if these teachers have already read a book in English. And still, we have some people saying that they have never read a literary book in English. A tiny percentage, like 2%. And as you can see, we have like 22% saying they read in English last month. 26% read in English 2 months ago, or a bit more. 24% of the teachers said they read in English 6 months ago or more. And then we can have other percentages here. What this kind of graphics show is that, yes, we have reading practice happening. And this is something we should take into account instead of just saying things like, oh, teachers don't read, oh, it's so difficult to read in English, oh, I don't know what to indicate to my students. I'm not saying that everybody does it, but there are some practices happening. There are some teachers doing this. What we have to discover is how to do it. If there are people doing, we also can do. Another interesting question is about if they suggest literary books to their students. And then they said in a big number, 37%, they said yes, because it is a linguistic and a general knowledge challenge. This is also interesting, right? So we see literature as a challenge. And I try to read it as a positive thing, but also we can read by a negative aspect, not challenge, but an obstacle. But once considering that the teachers are suggesting books to the students, I believe they also understand literature as something positive. And then we have 29% of the teachers saying that they suggest literary books because it is a way to broaden students' reading abilities. And then, yes, we have this first step that is about these reading abilities, but of course we can go further, as I told you. Okay, people, so getting into the final part of this presentation, I wanted to show you something that is very daring for me and something that we started to organize in this last semester. I say we because I have the help from RELO, the Regional English Language Office. I have the help of UX and this partnership with Professor Elizabeth Jing. She is a fellow at UX this semester, and she's a professor from Boston, and she is giving us support through RELO. And again, I would like to thank Professor Maria Valesia and Professor Sabrina Fadanelli to organizing this kind of partnership between universities and between these institutions. And among other projects Professor Elizabeth is involved in, she is also helping me with this reading project that we called Reading Between the Lines. And this project is happening on Fridays at 4 p.m. Brasilia time, okay? Every fortnight. And what we do, we try to read together a short story. Then we invited people we already know, some former students, some English teachers we have the contact with, and I'm going to insist, all of you are welcomed and invited. It will be a great pleasure having all of you with us. We still have some meetings up to mid-December, I guess. And then perhaps we're gonna stop for a moment for holidays, but then the idea is coming back in next year. And yes, it is occurring online, so you don't need to run here and there. You can read and discuss from the comfort of your house. And this is very interesting, people, because then basically the main objective of this project is trying to promote reading practices among English readers in order to create a reading community, to improve the language and to debate relevant issues literary texts may arise. So you see, of course, we try to develop, and as any kind of reading literature can boost our reading abilities. But we can go further and further, because once we start discussing and sharing these ideas with the other readers, we can boost our interpretation abilities. And this is the most beautiful part of it. And for this semester, the specific objective was, and still is, explore short stories of authors from different English speaker countries in order to picture the diversity of literary work. And then just to illustrate, people, I brought you some of these titles we read and some pictures of people who participated. Okay, so the first meeting we had was on September 18th, and we read James Joyce with Evelyn, and then it was a very nice moment, a beautiful moment, in which people get to know about this project. They presented themselves, and also they got really enchanted by James Joyce. Most of them hadn't read James Joyce up to there, and then they faced this very strong author in this group. Something I didn't mention is that we have a WhatsApp group, and usually 1 or 2 days ahead or before the meeting, we send this short story. Then people can read if they have the time. They can check some vocabulary they don't know, but in the meeting, we read it all together. So a paragraph or two, half of a page, each participant reads, and then we are training also pronunciation, intonation, emphasis, all these very interesting abilities that an English teacher should have. The second meeting also was kind of interesting because we read another powerful writer, that is Virginia Woolf, and we read The Haunted House. It was in the beginning of October, this meeting, and it was a big surprise because, as you can imagine, for those who doesn't know, or the ones who don't know this story, it seems like a scary or horror story, but in fact, it is not. And it embraces different themes. We can discuss different aspects from this text. Then we were closer to Halloween, and then we decided to approach another fine author, that is Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, and of course a classic of his short stories, The Black Cat. And this also was a very good surprise because people started to find different meanings and understanding the story from their own perspectives. So this is a very beautiful way to create this reading community, because then we can embrace this variety, this diversity of understandings, this diversity of backgrounds, and boost our own. When we share, we boost, we try to increase our own practices, our own understandings. Then the third meeting was about Catherine Mansfield, A Cup of Tea. And this is a beautiful text because it seems really silly, girlish, and then we start reading and we notice the power of this reading, the power of this author. If you don't know her, I strongly recommend. It is very easy reading, accessible, and also powerful. Then the last meeting we had was yesterday. Yes, this was a very busy week for me, but a beautiful week as well. And then we read The Red Door from a Scottish writer, and it was beautiful understanding, a beautiful interpretation we did. It's a short story, like 6 pages, and full of possible meanings, full of possible understandings. Okay, so here I let this invitation once again for all of you. Everybody is welcomed. And if you have any question, anything you want to know more specifically about this reading project, please contact me. There is my email. I would be glad to answer and to give extra info for all of you. So these are my references for this lecture, for this chit chat we had. And I really wanted to thank you all so much for this moment and for your attention. Thank you again, Braztesol Chapter here in Rio Grande do Sul. Thank you, Professor Maria Valésia. Thank you, Katia, Camila, and Marcia. I'll be free for the questions, for interacting with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Samira. I was going through your slides and I was wondering how much I have been reading because we have been very busy. But I realized that I had some selected in my side table for next vacation. And
beautiful.
Yeah, because sometimes I have to read this and I don't have time. So I'm going to put here and I'm going to buy the book. And on vacation, I go through all of them. And this is nice to read without a specific objective, isn't it? Exactly. Just for fun, just for enjoying the book. And so this is what I do when I am on vacation. My amount is kind of big nowadays. Okay. Well, people, as you can see, we are a lot of people here. So now we are going to call Professor Marcia Farias, who's going to, who has selected some questions to Professor Samira, and she's going to ask for you, okay?
Okay.
Hello, Samira, can you listen to me?
Yes, that's okay.
Stefan asked, how do you stimulate reading as a hobby in your students?
Okay, I believe the first step is being a reader. I believe this passion comes from inside. So it's not possible. Perhaps I was not that clear in the middle of the presentation, but it's impossible fake this passion. If you like, you love it. And I believe this is something we should show to the students. And of course, we can use the power of the books, because I can give you an example of something that happened to me this year. I was reading The Old Man and the Sea, and this was a reading I wanted to have done like many years ago, and I didn't. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to read something about a fisherman, somebody who goes try to fish and cannot fish enough. Oh, I don't like this topic. But then I give it a try, and I got like surrounded by that, and I surrender myself to this because it's a beautiful book, really. And this is something we should try to stimulate in the students. Give it a chance. Sometimes we should compare it to video games, perhaps. Maybe it's closer to our students. Sometimes they try a new title of game, and this is not something that they usually would play, but they should give it a try. And I would do the same with books. Stimulate in this way, showing passion and showing the power of the books.
Okay. Samira, I have another question about the research you showed us. Okay. A person wants to know if you asked the responders of your questionnaire what they understood by reader. Have you asked this?
That's a very nice question. Thank you for asking. In fact, I didn't. And then what is my parameter? What is my pattern? I try to follow these Retratos de Leitura do Brasil. That is inquire people are doing every 4 years here in Brazil. And they are in the 4th edition. 4th or 5th edition, I'm not sure, 4th, I guess. And then in there, they take as a reader a person who read from 2 to 3 books per year. This is our Brazilian rate of reading. So yes, it's totally very low. And then we can question these. We can think about what we are doing as teachers, blah, blah, blah. We can go for that direction if you want. But that was my parameter. And that's why I put into these categories for the teachers. So if you say you are a reader, how much do you read? So they try to classify 5 books, 10 books, because I thought, okay, if a regular person reads from 2 to 3 books per year, let's suppose a teacher would read a bit more. And then I started from 5. But thank you for asking. That's a nice question.
Okay, Samira, these are the questions I have. I really loved your presentation. And
Oh,
something the
that's
pandemic
nice.
gave me, I put myself a rule, read 1 chapter of a book at least every day. Okay, and it's making me so happy
Perfect.
because I was included in that group that, oh, I don't have time. But sometimes we don't give us or we don't organize ourselves to have this time. And sometimes I can read 2 or 3 chapters in a day. So I'm so happy. And it's true. I really love it.
Congratulations.
Okay, guys?
Wonderful.
Okay, Samira,
Thank
and
you
it
so
took
much,
me
girls.
back when I was studying English, starting studying English at Cultural Brasileiro Norte-Americano in Porto Alegre, that I was introduced to all these people, Paul and whatever, all of them, you know, because we used to have to read 1 short story a trimester, each trimester. We used to read and discuss in the classroom. And so now I can see how important it was to have that readings, okay? Thank you very much for sharing with us your research and make us reflect a little bit on our readings. Maybe we can change a little bit, yes? Or maybe we are on the way. We are okay, we are on the way.
Of course.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Hello, Katja.
Hello. So we are now a little bit early, but we're going for our break now, and we will be back at 10. Okay?
Okay.
So see you all at 10.
In 10 minutes. See you.
At 10 o'clock.